Hey, it's Sol with another video, and boy oh boy, WoW tokens have gotten pretty expensive, haven't they? Prices over in the Americas region, they reached over the 400,000 gold range for the first time, and I think it's better as of this recording, and it might not be better by the time that you watch this. It's kind of scary to think that just a few short months ago the price was less than half of that. So we're going to talk about how the token got to the state that it's in, and there isn't any single or simple answer. It's not so simple to say that, oh, it's because the game is just bad and literally no one's playing. It's not that the real world economy is messed up or inflation or so on and so forth, but none of those answers are actually wrong either. It's a little bit of everything that ultimately plays into the price that we see. And we're also going to talk a little bit about if there's any hope of relief and what the WoW team can do to help tip the scales in a way a little bit to help control the price, or at least help it not get so out of control. I want to make it clear that I might be well off in WoW. I know how to make gold, but I'm no economist. I'm not that smart. I just try to pay attention and listen and then offer my take. So don't consider this to be financial advice. It's nothing, all right? Anyway, while there are a ton of factors that go into the price of the token, there is a jumping off point that we ought to focus on first, and that's just the simplicity of supply and demand. So here's the token in a nutshell. When there's urgency for gold that someone might need sooner than later, they may buy the token, and then ta-da, the supply of the token goes up. When there's a reason to use gold to buy a token for game time or BattleNet balance, then the supply of the token goes down. Now, the current trend, currently the supply of tokens on the market it's kind of low. Not a lot of people are trying to buy gold, so the few tokens that are circulating are going for higher and higher prices. Right now, it's a gold buyer's market, I guess, with the token going at an all-time high, which, well, will tempt some folks to be like, dude, 20 bucks for almost 400 grand, let's freaking go. At the same time, the overall trend is that people still aren't buying gold and the price is slowly going up. Now, we get to use our imaginations here. Almost anything goes. Why aren't people buying gold is the question. Now, I already said that there's almost no wrong answers. We just can't say for sure if there's a number one factor, but we can identify a few trends here, some of which are kind of new. Now, first off, we're at the tail end of a WoW season. That's a very typical thing where progression is done and the demand for almost everything is lower. Fewer people need to buy or craft gear or buy carries or use consumables and so on. It's well understood that at the start of a new season, especially in expansion, that the economy gets a big supercharge. There's a lot of gold changes hands, and in the middle of that are the people who find that the most efficient method of gold farming is to just drop 20 bucks. Dragonflight is the first expansion where the regional auction house is fully implemented from the get-go. As you might have noticed, the prices of many gathered resources is super low. That's kind of what happens as an economy in World of Warcraft ages. Low prices of resources means a lower possible listed price of goods on the auction house. You've noticed the price of consumables these days. As a critique, I don't think there's enough going on with WoW professions to help regulate the resources that are being gathered. There's just too much stuff and not enough to do with it, and or people don't really care to use that stuff. But also, thanks to professions, gear is extremely cheap to obtain. Take for example an epic belt. I'll put it up on screen somewhere. You need, I think I'm remembering this right, you need 13 Frostfire alloy, and you need a Frosty and a Fiery Soul, and some others, and I think that's it. The cost of rank 2 alloy and soul cages to get those souls, I'm going to put those up on screen, and you need a spark, of course. For the sake of argument, let's say that you just find someone to make this for you, or you even have a public order done. Epic gear, just like that. That's kind of it. If you wanted a mythic version of this, then it just kind of depends on your server. But the point is that anyone who's wised up these days knows that professions have been fantastic for the client, who only needs to spend a fraction of what they would spend on the auction house for equivalent BOEs. Again, it depends on your server, but despite the constant call for profession catch-ups and respecs, more and more characters are getting access to high-level rank 5 crafts, making the fees for services competitive, again, in favor of the client. Another small critique, the material cost of crafted gear it's pretty low. This couldn't have been anticipated. That's just kind of me talking in hindsight. In fact, not just crafted stuff, gear period is now very easy to obtain and also upgrade, and that doesn't require gold at all for that type of stuff. And throughout the season, higher levels of gear are being made available with almost precision scheduled calculation. It's inching players closer and closer to that next level before the new tier or season. It was one thing when there were only a few sources of higher level gear. It would prompt those player run events like GDKP runs. Now there's a lot more sources, and some of these are made available on a weekly basis. Today, players just have more options. World of Warcraft has a service market that I'm sure is still doing pretty well. It includes paid carries through keys. It's got mythic raids and arena carries for gladiator. Ethics aside, it's there. It just exists, all right. And I don't have a good read on this. I'm sort of just suspecting here. I wonder if these days players are starting to question the benefits of these services and thus the value or the worth of these services. So I'm gonna need a little bit of a setup for this one. So once upon a time, you needed to be a gladiator or a mythic raider to get like the best items, as in, the really badass transmog set and the cool mount and more. It seemed like, Big 3 content, raids, PvP, and Mythic Plus, that they were the only sources to get these cool things. Now with Dragonflight, times have changed even before that, but definitely with Dragonflight, things are different. Between profession and outdoor content, players have numerous accessible activities that, kind of sort of feel like progression, and the rewards can feel plenty powerful with a grind that most folks can handle just fine. Like, this is the outdoor sets for Plate Wars. I'll put it up on the screen. Like, this is the outdoor set for Plate Wars in 10.2. And here is the Covenant set and none of these you can just buy with gold. You just have to work towards them and get them. It takes a while to get. I wouldn't say that it's difficult, but I would say that for some, it's going to be a great feeling to complete that set that you had earned. And I feel like the trading post also has added even more to sate the player appetite for having like cool looking things. Heck, right now, if people want, if they want things from the in-game shop, in many recent cases, all they have to do is wait for it to just show up on the trading post and they can get it for free, whereas before they might have thrown down real money or used BattleNet balance. So what I'm trying to argue here is that the rewards from Big 3 content, they're not what they used to be. And so paid carries and boosts aren't as demanded as they used to be. There are paths to rewards that aren't about high skill or paying someone who has high skill. There are external influences to the WoW token price as well. Just like how demand for gold compels players to buy tokens for gold, there are factors that get players to, that have gold to buy these tokens for BattleNet balance for other things. Like the likes of Diablo 4, Overwatch 2, which I think is going to have a new season. Both of them are going to have new seasons soon. And then Call of Duty, they have regular releases of items and expansions and so on that can be bought with real money or BattleNet balance. So there's a market of players who overlap World of Warcraft with other games under this BattleNet umbrella. I can't say how large that bucket of players is, but it exists, and as these games launch new stuff, new seasons or whatever, they're reducing the number of tokens available, while WoW has not had the same kinds of updates that would tempt players to buy gold. Like, as a counterexample, 10.15 did introduce tier 3 crafting, and you'll notice there's a graph that I think I can pull up on the WoWtoken.app. Like, you can see like the price trending down for a little bit, like there's a bit of a distress happening, at least for a few weeks before the price started going up again. The WoW token inflation isn't what I'd call a problem that needs solving, because that would make it seem like I'm endorsing the token, or that I want players to be gold starved and need to get copious amounts of it to get rewards, whether it's power or cosmetics. That's not my intent here. I did make a few light suggestions to help regulate the price of tradable goods, and patch 10.2 is going to introduce a couple things. Like, they're going to bring in a vendor who demands a random assortment of gathering resources, and that might help put a dent in the supply of these gathered goods. Also, a new resource is being introduced to a number of crafted goods that are coming in this patch, and we'll have to see how all of this works out. But I'm sure more than a few folks out there would just want, you guys just want to see the price go down a little bit, so let's talk up a few possible thoughts and ideas, and of course, feel free to share your own. If the WoW token price is dependent on the demand for gold, the most fair approach, I think, would be to introduce new gold-based incentives that don't feel punishing for players if they decide to not participate. So, like, for example, a bad idea would be to increase the cost of repairs and transmogs, because that affects everybody, and we would risk distressing folks who might go broke from just repairing stuff. Better ideas, a better direction to go would be like to add a costly vendor reagent to crafting recipes, sort of like the legendary base pieces in Shadowlands. The affected market, it would only be the clients who are looking for crafted gear the moment that they're actually doing it. Like, I've already shown you an example of how cheap it can be to create even mythic quality gear minus the service fee. And unlike Shadowlands, this gear is made to order, so this additional cost always has value. You're not blowing a bunch of gold on resources that you don't ultimately need or ultimately won't be factored into a selling price. Another decent example would be to have more mounts sold off a vendor. Crazy. It wouldn't be so different from Battle for Azeroth, which had a number of very expensive mounts that weren't attached to any reputation whatsoever. Another possible idea would be to update the black market with like anything. I'm talking about the black market auction house, like, please update it. I can think of one great thing to add to it, and that would be quantum pieces. Now, for those who don't know what those are, quantum transmog tokens, these drop from the Dawn of the Infinite dungeon towards the very end. They're virtually guaranteed to drop an appearance that you haven't already learned. I think it'd be freaking great to have that added there. Like, it'd be valuable, but it's also random, so it's not going to end up being that valuable. Like, it's not going to go for gold cap. But now here's a risky idea. In fact, it's bad. This is a bad idea. I'm gonna share this thought anyway. It's my video, so. What if each month one item from the trading post could be traded like any other item, making it an actual trading post? There are lots of ways to go about this, I think. Maybe one item can be handpicked by the WoW team, or maybe players can decide on like one item per month. Like, they'll just look at the lineup and then they can just drag it into a box or something and maybe pay some extra tender, but it'll give them this item that they could use for themselves, which would be a mistake, or they can post it onto the auction house or trade it to players, or like hold on to it while hoping the gold cost of this particular item goes up. And perhaps for those big ticket items like mounts or whatever, players will blow a bunch of gold on them, compelling them to maybe buy a WoW token for that purchase, or maybe later down the road because they end up being short on funds after making that purchase. I don't know. Like, if anything, this would be an interesting experiment. When the trading post month is over, there's this, I guess there could be this semi-finite amount of these items in circulation until the item returns to the trading post. Like I said, it was a bad idea, but that was me giving it a shot. As for the external influences, let's speculate a little bit there too. The Microsoft deal to buy Activision Blizzard is nearly a done deal, unless it's not, and this comment ends up aging like milk. The future of the WoW token, thus, is kind of uncertain. Maybe under Microsoft, it'll be gone. There goes this entire conversation. And maybe, and I sort of prefer this, maybe the WoW token could separate itself from non-World of Warcraft content. That way the economy could be more or less closed. There would be no more external influences. Now, like I said, I don't think inflation is necessarily a problem that needs solving. This part just always bothered me a little bit. And after all the stuttering, that's all I got. I just wanted to carry on a little bit about the token and invite you to share your thoughts. Like, how are you feeling about the token these days? Is it broken? Is it like, oh, it is what it is? Or is it literally the devil? Let me know in a comment below. Like the video, subscribe, and let's get out of here. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.